The well-known artist Robbie Conal works in a very unusual medium, postering. He says the purpose of postering is for mass distribution of a message, to startle the public into thinking about issues that we think are important to the health of American democracy, the Constitution, our First Amendment rights, and the future of rock and roll. Where does rock and roll fit in?
Guerrilla Playfair. Well, rock and roll's important to me. And, you know, if you start thinking about government control and censorship and of creative activity and mischief, rock and roll fits right in with art making. So it's a mischief kind of thing.
What kind of music do you listen to?
I listen to everything. Very eclectic tastes. I listen to whatever Tom Schnabel would play, I would listen to. No, I mean, I grew up in New York City listening to the blues, actually. I don't think I even listened to any white music till I was 40, except hippie music, you know, psychedelic music, and of course all the music I heard when, you know, I didn't know I was hearing it, which is like half my life. But I listen to everything, and lately we've been listening to a lot of world music, and I think that we're going to go see Baaba Maal and Mansour Seck, and I'm really excited. But I listen to music that I never thought that I would like, that I was prejudiced against all my life, and now I go, this is cool. Like Hawaiian music. I love Hawaiian falsetto singing, the Ho'opi brothers, and Ledward Kapana, and pedal steel, and all that stuff. And you know, everybody thinks that's really corny, but it's spiritual. It's transcendental. You get to the real thing, you know, in any culture, it's transcendental. And that's something I might have known somewhere, but I really had to learn. Basically, you know, I do satirical, pretty much negative work, but I'm an optimist, because you can't run around like a maniac in the streets, you know, all around the country with a bunch of irregular guerrillas putting up stuff about politicians without being an optimist, because it's a pain in the ass to do. It's a total loss project, and you know, you got to be thinking that this is going to be fun, or you know. And half of making art, I think, is this is going to be cool. You know, that's if you want motivation for making art. You know, like what's going to look cool, what's going to be cool to do.
So you work in other cities. You don't just work in Los Angeles.
Well, I work here. I mean, literally right here. Along with, you know, if you're talking about the production process of the posters, there's a lot. It's not just me. You know, I have a whole team of people. My wife, Deborah Ross, a movie title designer. I only, you know Helvetica Bold. That's the extent of my relationship with type. And she said, you know, there are other typefaces, honey. You know, so anything that I do that actually looks good is her. And then, you know, I have a great photographer, and Alan Schaefer, and you know, we have lots of people in the production process. And, you know, people do computer graphics with me where I just sit behind them and go, could you make that yellow? You know, or, the head's too big. That kind of thing. So, and then, you know, you have a printer, and you have all the people who help us in many, many ways. So it's a big process.
But then
for a little result.
But then do you travel to other cities in the States?
Oh, yeah, getting back to that, yeah. So we start here, and you know, we get people together in an all-night coffee shop. In Los Angeles, it's Cantor's Deli. Where else? You know, if there's any center of Los Angeles at all, it's Cantor's Deli on Fairfax. And we get about 60 people. We take over about a quarter of the joint. You know, they have a place called Robbie's Hole, and that's where we go. And I give a little talk about guerrilla etiquette, you know, how to talk to very large people in midnight blue outfits with shiny accessories when you meet them in the middle of the night, and how not to talk to them, and how to talk to regular people you meet on the streets, where to put the posters, where not. But if you try telling 18-year-olds where not to do anything, they go, and then they come back to you 4 hours later. Rob, we had a great time. We did everything you told us not to do was terrific. you know. But and then we get them into teams of 2 or 3 people. They give them a roll of posters, a bucket of glue, and a brush, and send them out into the night, and then take the posters on kind of garage band, rock and roll, total loss poster tours.
Robbie, how does this whole process begin? How do you think about what exactly a poster is going to be, that beginning?
Yeah, I guess you know, I have different levels of pissed off. And on many tracks, you know, following different, you know, egregious abuses of power by so many people, you know, so many bad guys, so little time type of thing. But when one reaches critical mass or hits some kind of threshold where I really get pissed off, then I just kind of go, heh, 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 you know, okay. And, you know, I'll go after somebody. But I've tried to, because I really don't do that much, you know, and it's not like a political cartoonist who will do 5 a week, you know, which is like totally awesome. I mean, I'm too lazy to do anything like that, but like maybe 4 times a year if I'm hot, you know, crank one up. And, you know, I get my kicks once a month doing a page for the LA Weekly, and I can get to more subjects that way. It's basically the same form, but it's not as big a production number. But that's how it starts. I get upset, and then I can actually go do something nasty.
Then you roll, yeah.
Yeah. Then I get, you know, feel a whole lot better.
Then does the language come? I mean, that also interests me because it's very precise language.
That's also, you know, part of the fun part. I mean, the one thing about colloquial American English is that I think it's the most subversive form of communication on the planet. You know, aside from, you know, Hawaiian falsetto singing, which would be second, or tied. So I love language, and I think it's a great, and you know, we're talking about humor. With my work, it's like something nasty with a humorous spin that makes it bearable and also receivable in a way. Like, you know, you're going out, you have to think about your audience when you're making stuff for everybody, and you know, having the chutzpah just to go out and put it up, whether they want to see it or not, they're going to see it. So part of that deal that I make, the invisible deal with my audience is, well, I'm going to entertain you a little bit, you know, show you a little fun. And also, I think humor cuts these giant assholes down to size, you know, so a little bit for us. And it's really for regular people. It's not for them. You know, people will say, well, what do you think? Is Ashcroft going to see it? Is he going to get pissed off? Fuck him. You know, it's not for him. It's for everybody else, you know, who's taking his shit.
Yeah.
You know, so, and so humor really helps slip it to him, and it helps me just get along. You know, like, how are we going to live through this, make fun of it? So, and the language is fantastic for that, you know. I mean, you take something like, I did one of Ronald Reagan around Iran-Contra called Contradiction. You know, that's a triple pun if you think about it. And if you don't think about it, that's okay too. But, you know, it's like layering something so that there are different angles of penetration and people can get it any which way, and they can interact with it, you know, the audience, and play with it a little bit. Like, hey, what the hell does that mean, you know? I'm happy if people look at it and say, what the hell does that mean?
But it's also been very controversial. Now, how are these grandiose projects, and how are they funded?
That's a good question. Wait, let's see.
Oh, deep pockets.
Yeah,
right?
deep pockets. I'm not wearing clown pants for nothing. I used to, before I met my wife, I used to pay for them all myself. And then the punchline is not, then I got her to pay for it. But then she wouldn't let me pay for it all myself. And she said, you know, well, there are people who help us, you know, give their time and energy by going out in the middle of the night and spattering themselves with glue in some of the most dangerous places in the known universe, like the streets of Los Angeles. And there are other people who actually have jobs or careers who might not do that with us, but will help in other ways. Whether they do in-kind help, you know, with computer graphics work, or you know, help us, the printer. You know, it's one of the hardest things is to find a sympathetic printer. And my relationship with my printer is special because it took me a long time to find somebody who was really good and also would let me pay them $100 a month for the rest of my life, and then would take out life insurance on me, so make sure I keep paying. And then there are people who, you know, whether they're, you know, lawyers or directors or working people in our community here who, for, you know, it's like Wimpy borrowing money for a burger. You know, I will gladly pay you Thursday if you give me money today. So for $100 for a signed poster and all the clippings of all the trouble we get into or whatnot, you know, people will help. And we have angels, you know, who, pink angels who will help us with this. And you know, I'm incredibly grateful to them.
You just mentioned a word called trouble.
Trouble.
Oh, what kind of trouble have you, I'm sure you've run into a lot of trouble with the cops. What happens when that happens?
Well, I wouldn't be doing this if, you know, I couldn't get into trouble doing it. I mean, that's part of, you know, that's why it's sexy at all. You know, as aside from the fact that, you know, appeals to every adolescent anti-establishment fantasy, you know, we have about going out and doing mischief in the middle of the nights when you're not allowed to do it. And that's another one of those ha-ha-ha things. I mean, this is a minor form of civil disobedience, really. And you can get it, you know, one thing great about America, you know, if you're white and kind of hip and maybe a little old, you can get into as much trouble as you want to. You know, so I kind of play at how much trouble I'm going to get into. And, you know, you put up posters or lost puppy notices or whatnot on public property without getting a permit. That's a municipal code violation in any city. And the municipal codes are a little different in each city, but basically, you know, it's a municipal code violation. If you put it up on private property without the owner's permission, it's also a municipal code violation. And so you can get in trouble for that. Now, if you add adversarial political content to that mix, you've got a little bit of a double whammy, and that's where we get our torque. You know, it's not just mischief for nothing, it's mischief to razz very powerful people who we think have abused their power. And so people who support them, and also, you know, like it might be their building or it might be the city, it can irritate them. And that's part of the plan, because it makes for more action, and then you have a secondary effect. Like you see the posters when you wake up in the morning and they're all over the place and you go, what the hell is that and what's it doing there? And then if we get into a little bit of trouble, it becomes news, and then I get to like talk to people like you and, you know, maybe have like another sentence or two out in a more mediated form, like the newspapers or TV or whatever, but people, I can explain myself a little. I hate them because. But you know, the thing is that it's not just art about politics. When you deliver it this way and distribute it this way, it is politics. So a very minor form of political activity, not like I'm trying to change people's minds about issues that are very important to them. I really think that's hubris for an artist to make art with the intent of changing people's minds about, you know, Social Security or who they're going to vote for or whatever. It's more the most direct, unmediated form of public expression available to a pictorial artist, you know, if you're willing to do something a little illegal.
So you also consider that it is public art, obviously.
Well, that part of it is public art. Absolutely. That's what it is. That's all it is. I don't consider it political activism. I mean, it's me you know, it's cathartic for me. I mean, I'm pissed off. I'm going to tell you about it, you know, whether you want to hear it or not. And this is my form of expression, you know. So in that sense, you know, I'm participating in the dialogue.
Yeah.
The coolest thing about postering is meeting people on the streets, you know, and interacting with them. I mean, that is like so much fun. I can tell you, like, the first time I knew that this was going to be okay was the first poster I did was Men with No Lips. And it was Ronald Reagan and members of his cabinet. 4 nasty little black and white paintings of these ugly old white guys in suits and ties with way too much power and weren't telling us what they were doing in the name of representative democracy. Just men with no lips. And my friend, I talked my friend, kind of Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn type, say, oh, you're going to love doing this and you're going to be good at it too, you know, let's go out in the middle of the night. And my best friend, we go, oh, okay, whatever, and we go out and we're at the corner of Beverly and La Cienega when they were, and forever in the late 80s they were building something right near the Beverly Center, which became something. But there was this big blue construction site wall, and we put up an art piece, a design, you know, we just went, you know, both artists, so we thought, oh, let's make a nice design. So we make this thing, all men with no lips, and it's like 2:30 in the morning, and some kids in a 1965 Mustang ragtop stopped at the light at the corner of Beverly and La Cienega. There were about 4 or 5 of them jammed into the car, and they look over and they see us, and they say, oh, that is really nasty. Where's that band playing? You know, it's like,
rock and roll.
yeah, rock and roll. We're back to rock and roll. So I said, all right.
How many people do you estimate see your work during a given project?
A lot.
Thousands?
Oh, yeah.
Millions?
Well, just people walking the streets in major cities in the United States. So you figure whatever. I mean, actually see it and are actually aware of it. But a lot. I mean, I tell you, the thing that surprised me most about this whole enterprise is how many people were actually interested. I didn't really expect. I knew that in Los Angeles, if you do this thing, it's not like I plan anything either. You know, like my MO is put one foot in my mouth at a time. But I know that in Los Angeles, we are so superficial, you know, in the nicest sense of the word, that we are, you know, like spectacular surface semioticians. Angelinos, if you're driving along on the freeway, you know, and they look over you, they're driving, and they see your car, the model of your car, your license plate, whatever vanity, you know, statement you have on it, the cell phone you're using while you're driving, your outfit, where you are, how fast you're going. They'll know the neighborhood you live in, you know, your favorite restaurant, the last movie you saw, because they can read the signs, and the signs mean something to them. So I knew that if we put up stuff in enough, you know, in what you call hit critical mass, where there were enough of them so that people would see them pretty much everywhere. And it was, you know, these images, it was nothing commercial, it wasn't selling anything obviously, wasn't obviously selling anything, didn't make any sense. What does men with no lips mean anyway? You know, maybe they recognized one of the 4 people, but not the others. Angelinos would see it, and they would notice it, and they would kind of say, well, that doesn't belong there, what the fuck is that? And that's all I needed. This has a little backstory to it, in that aside from my public production, I've been doing this series of decade paintings, which are, you take and they're paintings on photographs where you take an image from 2 images from a decade, like the 50s. Would be, I would take an image of Father Knows Best, the most popular sitcom.
Saying Grace.
Yes, it's actually the 1954 Thanksgiving week episode where they're praying over their hamburgers and buns because they've given their turkey to a less fortunate family. And then juxtapose that with an image from a significant event of the period, like the Army McCarthy hearings, and then blow them up and output them as a large photo montage, mount it, put a gloss acrylic laminate on top of it, take it in the studio and attack it with Ghosts in the Machine, images, layers of images of like J. Edgar Hoover with his leopard skin pillbox hat and matching earrings, Ronald Reagan when he was the host of Death Valley Days. That's kind of like a prefiguring. Speedy Alka-Seltzer, who, you know, like if you eat with Father Knows Best in the family, you're going to need Speedy.
Actually,
and frogs, actually, and Bobby Kennedy was really jealous of Roy Cohn, you know, becoming the head counsel for the House Un-American Activities Committee when he really wanted the job.
well, I love the hat and the earrings.
Well, thank you so much.
They're coordinated.
Yeah, that's right. Accessorized. There is a frog down there looking up at J. Edgar saying, "You're not going to make me into an accessory." So so there's one for each decade, and then what I decided to do, just kind of like for more fun, and also as an easier read, because this is arty art, was do a breakout painting from each big one, decade. So I took the Father Knows Best photo and blew it up again and decided to put frogs fucking on the table as kind of a, you know, friendly commentary. The 70s is Nixon and Kissinger in the Oval Office and Archie and Meathead arguing about Watergate. And there's a fishbowl, classic fishbowl with a little goldfish in it, superimposed, painted on top of Nixon and Kissinger. And that was the first breakout painting I did, was Nixon and Kissinger with a bigger fishbowl with the fish floating. And so for each one of these, there's going to be a painting like this. This is the 60s. And this is a draft card burning demonstration at the national headquarters of the Selective Service System in Washington, D.C., and the Brady Bunch. And of course, Lyndon Johnson, and of course, flower children. So we have, you know, butterfly, caterpillars turning into butterflies, and an appropriated symbol of hippiedom, a daisy, which Borden took over for Elsie the cow, and a troll doll, which my wife Debbie collected when she was a kid, when I was a hippie. So.
Robbie, the juxtaposition of your images are really incredible. How do you decide who goes with Lyndon Johnson, who goes with McNamara?
It's probably the hardest part is deciding, you know, who to put where. First, who to put, like who to do. You know, like you were saying at the beginning. You know, how do you pick a subject? That's really probably sometimes it's a slam dunk to pick them, but it's such a commitment, you know. And so that's tough. But in this case, you know, I mean, I have my reasons. I have William Westmoreland. He was the head of, you know, the Vietnam, a lot of the action in Vietnam. And McNamara, of course, was Secretary of Defense. And Nixon is in every picture because he's my evil muse, so he's going to be in every one. And then, you know, butterflies and daisies for the hippies is pretty much a slam dunk. And when you think about butterflies, you know that they, you know, metamorphize from caterpillars. And it's fun to have a caterpillar chewing at the Brady Bunch's heads there. Oh yeah, there's our model. Of course, you know, the thing is when you go to get a troll doll, or, you know, I want to paint a troll doll, then Debbie kicks in and says, well, you have to get a real one. And, you know, then we go on an expedition to find.
And they're $4,000 now.
So then we go collecting
That's the Margaret Thatcher doll.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, these were sent to me by some, like, you do this stuff and people send you stuff. So these just showed up. They're kind of like an anonymous gift, and from England. Again, you know, where Great Britain used to be. And this is Margaret Thatcher. There was a show called Spitting Image. And there were like 3/4 size or 2/3 size puppets. And they had a half-hour satirical show, which was one of the greatest political satire shows ever. And these are actually doggy toys that somebody sent me of two of my favorite subjects. And they were marketed under the name Pet Hates. So, gotta love it.